A good one to do. Another one we should do if we don't do it right now, at least after guns, is more on censorship. Because, especially speaking of public intellectuals, there's a real risk here that some of these people are going to start getting censored. I mean, they've already name-dropped some of them, talking shitty about the intellectual dark web in articles.
Yeah.
This most recent thing was like 800 American bloggers or content creators were purged from YouTube and Facebook.
Jesus.
They put out a New York Times article saying something like, now Americans are taking moves out of the Russian playbook on disinformation. So they're tying this McCarthyist purge now into...
They actually they deleted the accounts?
Yeah, and
that's
so many of them had nothing to do with Russia at all. So things like anti-war pages were taken down, pages that post about police brutality in the United States were taken down, and also right-wing and left-wing. And now, people like Jimmy Dore and Kyle Kulinski, who are anti-establishment, are saying, dude, we had to check to see if our page was still up.
Jesus.
This is getting bad.
That's really bad.
Well, I know, YouTube and stuff has been doing that to, radical right or left.
Yep.
That just any radical group, but they haven't been taking them down, but they've just been getting rid of their ads.
See, but that's how it started. It started with YouTube Apocalypse, where they started demonetizing people that talk about controversial topics.
Right.
And then it moved into the Russian purge, where, Russian bots and stuff like that. And then there was the algorithm purge by Google. So anti-establishment sites, lost 60% of their traffic because algorithms would, deprioritize non-establishment outlets.
Yeah.
And now it's the outright taking down of even American pages.
Jesus.
So it's getting really scary.
That reminds me of a hat that I saw. It was the red Trump hat, and it said, "Make Orwell fiction again."
Yeah. But the Democrats are playing right into this by allowing the Democratic Party to trumpet this bullshit about Russia and, to deflect away from their own culpability for the election that resulted in Trump and to try and distract away from any of the core issues, going on here. And it's fucked up, man. They saw that they couldn't control the people anymore in 2016, and they're trying to clamp down on political freedom. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and that would be, I think it would be really interesting to see what would happen if they did kind of take down the intellectual dark web.
Dude, I mean, this is the pattern that's followed so far, is they start posting articles linking them to the alt-right, linking them to the radical left, linking them to Russia, and then they keep trumpeting that, and then they take them out.
It's just these guys get 160,000 views on in a day or two.
One of the bloggers I followed that got taken down had 70,000 followers.
That's
I mean, this is getting pretty crazy. Multiple page I followed got taken down during this.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that Eric Weinstein talks about is the McCarthyism that's definitely going on, which is
and it's fucked up because a lot of people on the left, they cheered for Alex Jones.
Yeah.
And that's how it starts, bro. And it's not a constitutional issue. They'll go, oh, it's just a private business. And it's no, but you're setting a norm. You're setting the mechanism in place. You're normalizing this. You're saying it's okay for them to do it. You need to have a backlash to this.
Well, and then you just hope that there will be a counter outlet for it. Be okay, well, if YouTube's not going to post it, then this other place will post it.
But they're monopolies.
Right.
So then that gets again into what we were saying earlier about, should these be public utilities? How do we deal with that? How do we create that public space?
Totally.
So since we're on this already, I want to there's only one more part of this to really cover. So the big tech companies have been working with various government agencies in order to determine which of these pages or groups to take down. One of the main think tanks they've been working with is the Atlantic Council. And the Atlantic Council is essentially a NATO think tank, so it involves Europeans and Americans, former national security officials, Dick Cheney's in it, some neocons like Bill Kristol and Henry Kissinger are in it, so people like that. They put out a report that I linked to you guys, and I want to read a few bits from it.
Pretty scary.
But it'll take me a second to find it.
That is scary.
Here we go. So one of the things this is all from a report that came out of the Atlantic Council. And you can look it up. It's Sovereign Challenge Report 091.
We'll link it.
Yeah, I'll link it too. And it's just essentially about the need for media censorship. So here's some quotes from it. Technology has democratized the ability for sub-state groups and individuals to broadcast a narrative with limited resources and virtually unlimited scope. By contrast, in the past, the general public had limited sources of information, which were managed by professional gatekeepers. When radical and extremist views and incorrect ideas are broadcast over social media, they can even influence views of people who would not otherwise be sympathetic to that perspective.
Oh my God.
Watts warns, when forwarded by a close friend or relation, false information carries additional legitimacy. Once accepted by an individual, this false information can be difficult to correct.
Wow.
Eliminating those individuals and organizations will not be sufficient to combat the narrative and may in fact help amplify it. He adds, this is also the case for censorship, as those behind the narrative can use the attempt to repress the message as proof of its truth, importance, or authenticity. Technology giants, including Facebook, Google, YouTube, and Twitter, which can determine what people see and do not see, are vital to this. I didn't quote the whole thing. So it goes on.
But yeah.
Watts adds, fortunately, shifts in the policies of social media platforms, such as Facebook, have had significant impact on the type and quality of the content that is broadcast. Business and private sector may not naturally understand the role they play in combating disinformation, but theirs is one of the most important. In the West, at least, they have been thrust into a central role due to the general public's increased trust in them as institutions. So, and one of the most disturbing things in it too is they correlate the rise of the internet and they compare it to the rise of the printing press in Enlightenment Europe, and they say that development was negative because it caused instability and suffering and political discontent. So they're saying that the French and American revolutions, the end of feudalism and monarchy, and the rise of our current Enlightenment era was negative because it caused instability from the point of view of government power.
Yeah.
And they point to that as a justification for us needing to tamp down the internet now.
Holy fuck.
I mean, we were talking about freaking Sam Harris and his beliefs on Islam. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
This is like way worse than that. It's like, oh, yeah, maybe we should like talk about how there's some bad things about this religion, and this is like, yeah, maybe we should talk about like people sharing ideas is bad.
And
there's also a lot of censorship in Islamic regimes.
Totally.
But
yeah.
I
just mean that it's
censorship in general is a huge problem.
Well, the critique of there not being the availability of an idea, right? It's
I mean,
this is the freedom of speech thing that like Jordan Peterson and all of
Sam Harris is huge on that too.
Yeah, it's like that is what it is. It's
Yeah.
like there should be some things that are not talked about, and we should be able to decide what those things are.
Yeah, Sam Harris actually briefly mentioned the whole, YouTube, Google type thing, and whether or not that should be thought of as like a public utility, like we were talking about.
Yeah, it is
I
some
really
way.
think there's a huge advocation to be made for that.
It is the place where modern political discussion happens.
Yeah.
It is the modern day amphitheater.
Definitely.
Are there problems with purchased voices in terms of bots and various things like that? Yeah, but I think that the problem far more arises from domestic sources than international ones. I mean, think how much the message is manipulated by our own political parties or corporate interests. I mean, I think that probably is a way bigger problem.
It's crazy.
Well, but in the freaking assessment that just was read, that's a good thing.
Yeah, and
literally, they don't say this is what we mean, but that is what that says.
It was crazy too. So groups that were at the meeting of this Atlantic Council report included like the New York Police Department, and they wrote up like a list of like concerning sites, and gave them to the tech community. And then in this most recent purge, it included a ton of pages on police brutality. Big shocker. And then, of course, all these anti-war things right as we're ramping up to get into the war with Iran.
This is fucking crazy.
Wow. Holy fuck.
Yeah. And it's being barely talked about. I think the only people in mainstream that talked about it was like The Guardian and The Intercept.
Or they got censored already.
Yeah. And then the New York Times talked about it, but justifying it.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow, they justified
Yeah, they
it.
said Americans are now using Russian playbook tactics and
Right.
talking about, just the most egregious examples. They cited things like, spreading things with multiple accounts to try and increase their influence. It's like, that's marketing. Who doesn't fucking do that?
Yeah.
it's just a bunch of bullshit, dude. It's scary.
This is terrifying.
Good thing we're doing this. We like the right of people to speak out about their political rights or about their political views is under threat. So the fact that we're sitting down to do this thing, I think, is hugely vital.
We don't get censored.
Maybe our goal should be to become, outspoken enough that we get censored.
What I keep thinking about is like Google's constitution that they kind of made up, or their like morals default. One of them is "Don't be evil," and it's just,
they scrubbed
they
that.
removed that. Yeah.
Oh, so now it's okay to be evil, I guess.
Yeah, and now they're making a censored version of Google for China. So now we know
they made that a thing, and now it's not anymore.
Yeah.
It's Dragonfly. It's called Google Dragonfly.
No, the Don't Be Evil thing. Yeah, it's not in their mission statement.
But they had the no evil.
Yeah.
And then they took out the no evil.
Yes. And now they're making a censored version of Google for China, which shows that they don't have an inherent principle of free speech. They're going to go where the money is. Yeah. So if our government pushes them hard enough, they'll censor us.
Yeah.
The dark side's so strong.
Seriously, it's crazy.
So strong.
It's terrifying. This reminds me of you all Noah Harari's talk on fascism and how we have to be really careful who has our information, because whoever has the information is ostensibly the government.
Yeah, we are ruled by a corporate state.
Yeah, they can essentially control whatever they want.
So one of the most prominent political philosophers of the 21st century, Sheldon Woolen, he referred to our current political organization as inverted totalitarian.